Candidates, that's all coming up live on WWL Plus.
And if you're not already watching, Bear will give you a moment to switch on over. And if you haven't tried WWL Plus, all you need to do is download the app on your smart TV, and you can watch anytime for free.
How to solve the city's biggest problems. Public safety topped the list, with candidates split on whether outside help is needed.
Crime is down at historic lows in some areas. So why is New Orleans being singled out as a place we want to have National Guard troops walking around patrolling our neighborhoods?
But I would much rather the president and the governor give us the money so that we can invest in early child education, universal child care.
Infrastructure and population loss also became flashpoints, with Moreno calling for a sewerage and water board overhaul and Duplessis saying affordability is what's driving people out.
There still need to be significant efficiencies and a complete revamp of the sewage and water board.
People left this city because it's too costly to live here. They need opportunities. They need affordable housing.
And when the questions turn to each other, Thomas and Duplessis pressed Moreno directly.
They see the paid actors on social media. Can they trust that you won't change on us?
Duplessis pressed Moreno about a racially charged email, which he says mischaracterized his campaign.
In that email, he falsely claimed that someone from my team referred to you and people on your team as white devils. Now, I was offended by that because not only is it not true, but why have you not denounced that?
And I agree. That term should absolutely be denounced, no doubt about it. But it is now in the court's hand. There's been a lot of distraction. So this, again, is yet another type of distraction where you'd rather come and attack me than actually talk about the issue.
No, ma'am. So you're saying it's not true.
The hope is that tonight's debate gave voters a chance to see where their candidates stand and to see how they handled the pressure on the big stage. For now, in New Orleans, Whitney Miller, WWL, Louisiana.
And after tonight's debate, we asked viewers who they thought had the best performance out of these three candidates, and we got 842 responses. 53% voted for Helena Moreno, 28% voted for Royce Duplessis, and 19% voted for Oliver Thomas. And you can watch tonight's debate and post-show in its entirety on our website or on our free television streaming app, WWL Plus.
New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell will be allowed to travel overseas for a family vacation despite facing federal charges. Today, a Louisiana judge granted Mayor Cantrell permission to travel to Iceland with her family next month. According to court documents obtained by WWL Louisiana, prosecutors did not oppose her request to travel as long as she continues to follow the conditions of her bond agreement. She's currently facing 11 federal charges of conspiracy, wire fraud, and obstruction of justice. A $30 million computer software upgrade is now on hold following last week's cyber attack at the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office. The city had agreed to purchase a Beacon software system to replace their current program used for bond transactions, jail releases, and communications with other agencies. Now, we're told that older program was not compromised because it doesn't run on Windows. Meanwhile, the Sheriff's Office continues to work to restore critical computer operations, and Docketmaster, the online public portal used to track cases, is still down.
All right, right now we're taking a look at our forecast. Chief Meteorologist Chris Franklin standing by. And Chris, I can say it feels good outside, but it is the evening time, 10 o'clock at night. It should feel pretty good up there.
No, yeah, the evenings and the mornings do feel nice because of that less humid air. And actually late this evening have one lone shower on radar. Had a little bit of lightning as it passed across Ponchatoula around Killian right now. Still a little bit of lightning in the extreme western part of Lake Maurepas. Probably not affecting too many areas as it moves a little bit more toward the marshier parts of St. John Parish, and otherwise mostly clear skies outside this evening with that one lone shower. Otherwise mostly dry over the next several days, though did see a few spotty showers today. Live looking out toward downtown, mostly clear, and temperature-wise, not bad. We're in the 70s, lower 80s. Not exactly that fall feel just yet, but at least with dew points 60s and lower 70s. The evenings and mornings are feeling a little bit milder, but our highs still getting into the 90s. And a reminder, we are still very much in the heart of hurricane season, with 2 areas still being monitored by the Hurricane Center. One, our likely next name storm, probably breaking a 20-day stretch of no name systems in the Atlantic Basin. We'll talk more on that coming up.
All right, Chris, thanks. Louisiana State Police are investigating a tragedy after a crash on the North Shore took the life of a child this morning. This happened just before 8:30 on Louisiana Highway 40 north of Covington. Police say a car veered off the road and hit a tree. The child died at the scene. Police say she was sitting in the front passenger seat and was not wearing a seatbelt. The St. Tammany Parish coroner identified her as 8-year-old Jewel Leger. The driver, who had a seatbelt on, was taken to the hospital with moderate injuries. Governor Jeff Landry is defending President Trump's plan to deploy National Guard troops across the country to crack down on crime. On Monday, the president signed an order to deploy troops to Memphis, Tennessee. It's the second city President Trump chose to target after Washington, D.C. A leaked Pentagon plan mentioned sending 1,000 troops to Louisiana. Today, Governor Landry did not say whether he has spoken to the president about deploying troops here, but he defended the idea and says the Guard was already deployed here earlier this year.
New Year's Day, the tragedy that befell Bourbon Street. One of the first calls I made was to General Freelou. And I said, how many soldiers can you give me? Why? Because we had to secure the largest crime scene the city of New Orleans ever had. And what the National Guard does is it gives you a force multiplier. What it does is it gives you some boots on the ground of people who are highly trained and highly disciplined. And I think that that's the overall arching message.
Now, right now, it is unclear if or when the National Guard would be deployed to our state.
Well, today, prosecutors announced charges against a man accused of firing the shot that killed conservative activist Charlie Kirk.
Tyler Robinson faces multiple charges, including felony aggravated murder, 2 counts of felony obstruction of justice, and more.
If convicted, Robinson could face death by firing squad. Andres Gutierrez has more.
Tyler Robinson, the suspect in last week's fatal shooting of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, made his first court appearance on camera from the Utah County Jail Tuesday. Wearing a sleeveless smock, Robinson appeared stoic throughout the proceedings, stating only his name.
Could you state your name? Tyler James Robinson.
I have reviewed your declaration of financial status and find that you are indigent. I'm provisionally appointing a Rule 8 qualified attorney to represent you on your case.
Robinson is charged with aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm, 2 counts of witness tampering, and committing a violent offense in the presence of a child. Prosecuting attorneys confirmed Tuesday they are seeking the death penalty.
I am filing a notice of intent to seek the death penalty. I do not take this decision lightly.
Investigators are piecing together evidence, including a rifle found in a wooded area after the shooting at Utah Valley University in Orem. At a press conference Tuesday, officials read messages exchanged between Robinson and his roommate.
The roommate received a text message from Robinson which said, "Drop what you're doing. Look under my keyboard." The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, quote, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it."
Robinson's being held without bond at the Utah County Jail. He's back in court on September 29th. Kirk's public funeral will take place Sunday at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona, the home field of the Arizona Cardinals. President Trump will attend. Andres Gutierrez, CBS News, Hurricane, Utah.
And in other top national stories you need to know, Luigi Mangione is no longer facing terrorism charges in connection to the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Well, this morning, a New York judge ruled that prosecutors didn't prove that Mangione's goal was to, quote, intimidate and coerce a civilian population. But he still does face that second-degree murder charge in a New York state court, as well as a federal case that could carry the death penalty. Mangione has pleaded not guilty to all those charges. FBI Director Kash Patel appeared before the Senate Judiciary Committee today, ready to defend his record. So during that hearing, Patel faced questions about widespread firings, including some former agents now suing the Trump administration, and clashed with Democratic senators.
It's my time, not yours.
My God.
If you want to talk about
dividing this country,
it is my time.
I follow you on your social media posts that tear this country apart.
Well, Patel also faced questions about convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein as lawmakers on both sides of the aisle press for the FBI to release more information. Patel will be back on Capitol Hill again tomorrow, this time on the House side. And tributes are pouring in for actor, director, and activist Robert Redford. From the Western Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid to the Watergate thriller, All the President's Men, the actor was one of Hollywood's biggest stars, earning an Oscar nod in The Sting, and later winning for his directing debut in Ordinary People. Eventually, Redford moved to Utah and established the Sundance Film Festival. He was 89 years old.
The holiday shopping season is fast approaching. But recent economic data reveals prices are heating up while the labor market is cooling down.
Overall, heart attack rates are down, but younger women are seeing an increase. We take a look at the potential hidden causes.
Our 20-day streak of no-name storms in the tropics could be coming to an end, plus a closer look at our forecast.
While it's still considered relatively rare for a younger adult to have a heart attack, rates are increasing, especially in women. That's as research shows a decline in older adults.
And a new study is revealing some potential hidden causes of that changing trend. Mandy Gaither looks at the data and what one of the study's authors hopes people take away from it.
In the U.S. is the most common cause of heart attacks. Coronary artery disease causes the narrowing of arteries due to plaque buildup, restricting blood flow. But not all heart attacks are caused by blockages.
There are different types of heart attack, non-traditional heart attacks that can affect younger people.
Dr. Claire Raphael with Mayo Clinic is first author of a study that looks into why there's a concerning rise in heart attacks among young adults, especially younger women who don't necessarily have traditional risk factors like high cholesterol. She says 1 in 10 heart attacks in women under age 65 are caused by something called spontaneous coronary artery dissection, or SCAD.
The artery in the heart suddenly develops either a tear or blood forms around the outside of the artery, and that impedes the blood supply to the rest of the heart. So it causes a heart attack without having any cholesterol buildup.
Researchers say SCAD was nearly 6 times more common in women than men and typically affects younger and otherwise healthy women. Raphael says it can be triggered by something like intense exercise, but can also happen out of the blue. And she hopes this data brings awareness of more non-traditional causes of heart attack, even if more common causes aren't present, to prevent patients from being misdiagnosed.
Anyone can have a heart attack. It's not just older people or smokers. So if you have chest pain and you don't feel right, get it checked out.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Dr. Raphael says of the nearly 1,500 heart attacks studied, the second most common cause were stressors like anemia or an infection, and those heart attacks were often the most deadly.
Well, the countdown begins. As of today, there are 100 days until Christmas. Sharice is celebrating, right? Am I right? And for those who want to get a head start on shopping, a slew of retailers have released their top toys and gifts of 2025. But shoppers might be pulling back on holiday spending. PricewaterhouseCoopers says we could see a decline on average of about 5% compared to last year, which would be the first notable drop since 2020.
Consumer spending drives about 70% of aggregate GDP. If large numbers of consumers pull back their spending, that means the businesses that serve those consumers are not going to have so much strength in their revenues and their profits. It's going to weaken business conditions and could lead businesses to contract or even some to fail.
Now, if you need to fly somewhere over the holidays, flights are typically at their cheapest around 6 to 12 weeks ahead of the travel date, which means you should price those Christmas flights between mid-October and early November.
Earlier the better.
I can't believe we're already talking about
I love
Christmas.
it. I have to say,
I know,
the older
you were like raising the roof over here talking about Christmas presents.
No, I'm a Christmas baby too, though.
I know. It's like birthday season for you.
Yeah, it's birthday season. It's Christmas season. The temperatures get cooler.
That's the key.
You can pull out a fur coat, maybe.
Sure. Because December's never warm.
Yeah, of course. It's going to be freezing.
Well, at least we'll be done with hurricane season by that point. And we're still quite out in the tropics right now. We have gone 20 days since our last named storm dissipated. That was Fernand back on August 27th. And still do not have a named storm as of right now. That high chance kind of jumping out at the screen there is at 90%. Not to say that it's a guarantee, because we've already seen a 90% on one of those tropical waves, though Invest 92 is looking a bit healthier. And then we also have this wave that may be struggling for a while, and only a low chance of development once it gets into the central Atlantic. So we'll focus a little bit more on our better organized Invest 92. Thunderstorms have really become more active around that broad center. Really all it needs now is for that closed center of circulation. Winds are already at 40 miles an hour, so it's very possible this is already a depression or possibly even a storm. Thankfully, though, the models have been fairly consistent, even when they were just kind of sniffing out some development, in keeping this away from the islands and hopefully making a turn even away from Bermuda by early to mid next week. So we will see, but this one does not look like it is a threat to us. And as we get later into the season, the threats from those African easterly waves, the waves that come off of Africa, less of a chance of really impacting us here. It's the ones that are closer to home that we need to watch on. And there is a lot of thunderstorm activity around Central America, but nothing that is jumping out. And looking at the model comparison, comparison of the three ensemble models that are the more accurate, the GFS has been sniffing out some kind of little surface low. This is actually looking on a still shot of September 26th, so 10 days from now. The Euro, few of the ensemble runs are indicating maybe a little surface low, whereas the Google DeepMind is showing absolutely nothing. So there is certainly not a strong signal for Gulf or even Caribbean development within the next 10 days. That's pushing us closer and closer to October when we really start to see the cold fronts. One lone shower, actually, it looks like it had been a thunderstorm, may have most of the lightning already winding down with that one shower, with otherwise mostly clear skies outside this evening. Temperature-wise, about the same as we have been for the last almost now 10 days or so with that drier air in place. 81 is our current temperature with dew points in the low 70s. So temperature 70s and low 80s, and humidity does typically increase a little bit before coming down 60s and 70s. And relatively speaking, I think that drier air is going to hang around through about Sunday. Does look like we'll start to see maybe a little bit more of a southerly wind by next Monday and Tuesday, which would help to increase the moisture, but a little bit of a change in the upper pattern may start sending our temperatures down a bit, maybe a little closer to our average. And it is not just us dealing with the warmth. Temperatures across much of the nation and even well into Canada are running above average. Where is the colder air? It is still bottled up well into northern Canada, and there are no signs of any deep upper troughs like you see one that is over the Pacific coming across the continental United States anytime soon. That is what we would need to get that colder air to start pushing south, or even if nothing else, a little bit of a fall-like feel. Some indications as we get toward the middle of next week, this is a deep upper level low. This is an upper trough. This may help to bring down some cooler air, but it'll probably just stay focused right around the Great Lakes and maybe the northern Midwest. So that would be about as cold as the temperatures will get across the nation, or kind of more isolated across the nation as we head into the next several days. So no real cold fronts for anyone across the U.S. 92 our high over the next couple of days. Morning lows are in the 60s and 70s. With that southerly wind returning, may also see a few more spotty showers Sunday and early next week.
Good evening and welcome to Sports from Uptown. Tulane beginning their non-conference schedule 3-0, a very tough slate, has certainly made them an early season candidate for the college football playoffs. But this week against number 13 Ole Miss will be their toughest test yet. For Tulane head coach John Sumrall, it also represents some sentimental value. When Sumrall was at Troy, his first career game was in Oxford. His Trojans lost that day 28-10, but Sumrall experienced a special moment after the game that's helped shape his rising career.
I've shared this with Lane. I'm pretty certain, and if I may remind him if I haven't. After the game, I'm in our locker room. I do a post-game media availability. I'm really dejected, so I walk out. And there's Monty Kiffin. And Monty, passed not too long ago, and a year ago. And Coach Monty says, he comes over and he goes, hey, our team way better than y'all. He said, but man, y'all played hard. Y'all are tough. And he said, keep doing what you're doing. I needed to hear that as my first game as head coach, and we just got our butts kicked, and I'll never forget that.
Now, when it comes to this matchup, who starts at QB for Ole Miss will be something to keep an eye on. The Rebels' original starter, Austin Simmons, was limited last week with an ankle injury. In his place, Trinidad Chambliss had over 400 yards of offense and 3 total touchdowns in a win over Arkansas. The Green Wave believe both QBs can beat you through the air and on the ground.
They're different players. They probably lean into certain things that one guy does well versus another guy that does well. They both have a tremendous amount of talent and ability. You know, Simmons, the youngster that played the first couple games, like a wow arm. Like, you're like, the ball comes out, you're like, whoa, okay. Like, it's very impressive. Runs good. Like, he's a good runner, too. 6, the guy that played last week versus Arkansas, Trinidad, He's probably, he's not as tall, not as long, probably has really good short area quickness, kind of finds some seams, can get some pesky run game yards, and has great instinct and awareness. You can tell he's played a lot of football.
As we're watching film right now, I would just say one of them really is like more of a running quarterback, and the other one kind of throws better in my opinion. But I just feel like if we go there and just do what we're coached to do and just play what coaches call, we'll be fine.
Moving on to Baton Rouge, LSU safety Deshaun Spears was named the Nagurski National Defensive Player of the Week on Tuesday. Spears had 2 of LSU's 5 interceptions in that 20-10 win over Florida on Saturday. He was also named the SEC Defensive Player of the Week on Monday. Through 3 games, LSU's defense has been lights out, allowing only 9 points and an SEC best 56 rushing yards per game. This week, the number 3 Tigers will host their neighbors from I-12, the Southeastern Lions. Meanwhile, Tulane and Ole Miss will kick off at 2:30 on Saturday in Oxford. At Ullman, Seth Lewis, WBL, Louisiana. We'll be right back after the break.
Evenings and mornings don't feel so bad. We're in the 60s and 70s to start our day on Wednesday. High still, though, getting up to about 92 degrees. The humidity remains on the lower side into the weekend, starting to turn a little more humid early next week, along with a chance for some isolated showers.
All right, Chris, thanks. A family in Tennessee had a wild encounter with a family of bears, and it was all caught on camera. Why are they still there? Check it out. Mama Bear's there, and her 2 cubs approached the family's truck.
And the man on your screen, you saw him back off. And Mama Bear took advantage, grabbed a cooler from the back of the truck.
No.
And then she and her cubs scampered away with their stolen goodies.
You know what? It's theirs. Let them have it.
Yeah, but that family did not move fast enough for me.
No, you
That
know.
guy was like, well.
It's theirs. Let them have it.
He even throws his hands up like, well, the cooler's gone.
Well, I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to go wrestle them for it?
No.
All right, exactly. Let them have the snacks.
Yeah.
It's probably like Doritos or something in there or something. Wasn't even special, probably.
Just a picnic basket.
That's all the news for now. Thanks for watching.
Have a great night. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.
Brian Kelly confirms Garrett Nussmeier dealing with a torso injury. So how bad is it, and what do we know? We'll talk about it next. Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you for that. And I can imagine there's going to be quite a few comments on this episode as LSU beats Florida 20-10. Brian Kelly, in his Monday press conference, recapping the Florida game, previewing the Southeastern game, is asked about Garrett Nussmeier, if there's something mechanically going on with Garrett Nussmeier. And Kelly concedes that there's a little more to it.
You know, I'll be honest, and I wasn't going to get into this, but with you guys, I will. You know, he's been slowed a little bit with a torso injury, and he's fighting through it, and he's getting better. And he's not going to be able to really shut it down until we get to the bye week. And I'm not saying that has had any of his troubles. I think he is a symptom of what I just answered from Wilson in that, you know, we're not ripping it, you know, on 4th down. You know, we're taking some plays away from him as well. And he's done a really good job. I think he managed the run game as well as he has all year. We got to let him get the ball out to the playmakers. That would be more of what has to happen. And then we've got to keep him healthy. That's the most important thing.
Okay. So Brian Kelly acknowledges it's a torso injury for Garrett Nussmeier. But that's not the thing that's been limiting him offensively. It's the way that they've functioned offensively. Now, I know because I know you, I know what the reaction to this is going to be. Eureka, we found the smoking gun. This is something, this torso, oblique, whatever you want to call it, it's something we've talked about here on Locked on LSU. It's something I've talked about on my radio show After Further Review. It's something I've talked about on my live stream, Morning Scone. It's something that we've talked about on social media that everyone has been asking about. And the first I heard about this oblique torso was the Saturday before LSU played Clemson. That would have been August the 23rd. If you remember, LSU had what was supposed to be a scrimmage in Tiger Stadium. It ended up being just a walkthrough, and Nussmeier did not throw a pass during that practice. Now, I want to take you back further. So it was immediately after that I had someone call me and mention the torso, the oblique. I made about a half a dozen calls, and I will tell you candidly to people I trust within that program. And to a person, everyone insisted there was nothing to it. That there was nothing to the rumors. Now, let's connect the dots, okay? Brian Kelly also on Monday confirmed that this issue with Nussmeier started in camp, okay? Now, I'm looking. I have my camp notebook. For those who are watching, this is my notebook where I take my camp notes, right? So on Friday, August the 15th, it was day 14 of fall camp. They were indoors, helmets and shoulder pads, and Garrett Nussmeier was dressed, did not throw a pass. Whit Weeks also was on the bike, not dressed that day. Remember, that was the day that they gave them off. We met with Brian Kelly immediately after that practice, and he said, pitch count for Nussmeier, load management for Witt. They know they're going to depend on him, on those guys, and there's nothing to it. So the next day they scrimmaged. They scrimmaged in Tiger Stadium. And so after that scrimmage, I made a few phone calls and was told Nuss scrimmaged fully. He was a full participant in the scrimmage, no limitation whatsoever. So, okay, so then I believe pitch count. Okay, just a pitch count. Like, if he was really hurt, they wouldn't have him go scrimmage full contact, or wasn't full contact, but wouldn't have him go full go in a scrimmage the next day. Fast forward, Saturday the 23rd, the practice that we all talked about, right? That we were there. Nuss, again, didn't attempt to pass on 8:23. We did not get to talk to Brian Kelly until the Monday, 8:25, which was the Monday before Clemson. So I asked Brian Kelly about Garrett Nussmeier not throwing a football, not throwing a pass on that Saturday, 1 week before Clemson. Here's what he said. This was on 8:25, the Monday before Clemson.
When you get into the camp situation, we have I know it's not a great analogy, but we have a pitch count where we want to take our quarterback's load off, and all the installation was in, Matt. We were done with installation. So this was just more throwing. We wanted to wait and get into Clemson in game week. And so he'll be out there on Tuesday, practicing full.
Okay, so he'll be out there Tuesday, but that was before Clemson. We know he played against Clemson. He played against Tech. He played against Florida. And the other thing of note here is that Garrett Nussmeier has not been listed on the injury report. Now, my first thought is, has LSU broken a rule where you are mandated now by SEC rule to disclose injuries and list players on the injury report? So after the press conference was over on Monday, I went and when Brian Kelly disclosed Nuss's injury, I went and asked Brian Kelly off to the side, why hasn't he then been listed on the injury report? And Brian Kelly told me the only reason that players are mandated to be listed on an injury report if they are out or limited in practice. And Kelly said Garrett Nussmeier has been a full go in every practice. So this is where I'm connecting the dots, because I know what fans are going to say. I know what you're going to say. You're going to look at the offensive struggles. You're going to hear this from Brian Kelly and go, Eureka, that's why the offense is struggling. They're limiting everything because Nussmeier's injured, and they're not throwing the ball, and they're not stretching the field, and they're protecting Nuss because of the injury. I'm telling you, I don't think that's the case. I don't think this injury is limiting Garrett Nussmeier from throwing the ball down the field. Clearly, if it were affecting him, they wouldn't be practicing him during the week, and he would be on this injury report, but he's practicing fully. This feels so much like the same conversation we're having about the knee, where people went, you see, there was something to it. Well, okay, but not really. It's a thing, but it's a thing that's a nothing. And I think it's the same thing here. I don't believe this is limiting Garrett Nussmeier in any way. And I'm going to illustrate why I think that. And plus, Brian Kelly was asked that point blank on Monday. Is this injury affecting the play call for Garrett Nussmeier and what they're doing? He gave an answer, and I'm going to give you some evidence that might actually support it. Don't move. Let me do this so I knock out all of our elements. I'm going to come back and I'm going to continue on this and whether or not this injury is actually impacting the offense. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. Quick question for all you college football fans out there. If you could go back in time and sit in the front row at your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? Yes, I said hat. For me, it would be, and it was, the game. These aren't just hats. They're the same vintage styles that fans wore back in the 80s and 90s. And guess what? They still go at the same price they did back then when you use the code Locked On. It'll get you your vintage hat for $16.99. Head to thegamecaps.com. That's thegamecaps.com. Grab your team's classic bar or retro circle design and use code Locked On for an exclusive discount, because legends wear the game. We're also brought to you by 5-Hour Energy, where caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with zero sugar and zero crashes. What I love the most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. I always reach for my favorite flavor, which is extra strength grape, because it's refreshing. It gives me a quick little burst before a busy day. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-Hour Energy shots. Get the favorite you love, or be bold and try something new in-store and online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. And finally, we're brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. So Brian Kelly acknowledges Garrett Nussmeier is dealing with a torso injury, the way he phrased it. And Kelly was asked point blank, is this injury limiting the offense and limiting what Joe Sloan can call in this offense?
Okay. No, come Saturday, he's good to go. We've limited him a little bit during the week because of some tightness that he's had in his torso. It's an upper body injury that you want to be careful with how many reps he's getting throwing the football. So he's overcoming that. But we cut him down substantially. I think he's on the other side of that. But we had to be really careful with him the first few weeks.
So it eventually may go away, or?
Oh yeah, and I think with the bye week after Ole Miss, we should be in a great place.
Now, he did use the word limit there. He said, we have been limiting him. Now, initially, it was more early and with throwing specifically. That may be alluding to what was happening in fall camp, where they were limiting him in fall camp on the pitch count there, so as not to affect it even greater. And maybe when they've gotten into game week now, he hasn't been limited in practice. But Brian Kelly was very adamant that it's not affecting their play call in the game. And you can roll your eyes at that, and I understand. Look, Garrett Nussmeier right now does not look like the player that he was a year ago. But what Brian Kelly also said in this press conference is they're winning in different ways because they need to win in different ways. A year ago, they needed Garrett Nussmeier to throw for 300 yards a game. Last year, Garrett Nussmeier averaged 311 yards passing per game. So far through 3 games, he's at 229. So about 100 yards under his per game average a year ago. Now, it's also worth noting that if you look at Garrett Nussmeier so far through 3 weeks, against Clemson, Garrett Nussmeier was the 5th highest rated player on the entire LSU offense. He was the National Offensive Player of the Week. Against Louisiana Tech, he was the highest rated player by Pro Football Focus on offense. And against Florida, he was the highest rated player by Pro Football Focus. What Brian Kelly is saying is that they are, in effect, asking Garrett Nussmeier to win the game differently for them. And I know for a lot of you, your impression of that is going to be, yeah, because he's injured. My feeling, and Brian Kelly's been adamant about this, it's not because Garrett Nussmeier is injured. It's because you have 5 new starters on the offensive line who have struggled mightily to run block. And what we've seen from defenses is they are dropping 6, 7 men into coverage. And if Garrett Nussmeier is trying to throw into coverage like that, you're taking checkdowns and what they give you. The real problem with this offense right now is the fact that you can't run the football even when you have numbers. When teams are dropping 6 or 7 into coverage and you're facing a 4 or 5 man front and you still can't run the ball, that's because your guys up front aren't winning. And so you've got to be able to run the ball to make them bring numbers into the box so you can stretch the field. If you're thinking they won't stretch the field because of Nuss's torso, consider this. A year ago, Garrett Nussmeier threw passes of 20 yards or more 86 times. 13 games last year, 86 attempts went beyond 20 yards, okay? Against Clemson, 3. Against Florida, 3. Against Louisiana Tech, 7. So ask yourself this. If they were trying to protect Garrett Nussmeier and his torso, why would they open it up against Louisiana Tech and not Clemson or Florida? Right? Like the Clemson game, you were down in that football game. You needed offensive plays. I mean, your defense pitched a shutout in the second half, thankfully, but your offense had to put together drives. Like, you needed to make plays, and they did. They took the shot to Barian Brown. They threw one downfield to Barra Sharp that he just barely missed scraping the toe. You think about the Florida game, I mean, this was a game where your defense was absolutely outstanding, but you weren't able to capitalize on 5 turnovers, five interceptions. You couldn't run the football, and you possessed it. You played field position. The question is, did you play that style because of Garrett Nussmeier's torso, or because you don't believe you didn't trust your offensive line to protect long enough to let Garrett Nussmeier have the time to throw downfield, and your offensive line was unable to run block? I mean, we can run through these numbers again if you caught our Pro Football Focus grade, but against Florida, LSU's run blocking grades were not good. Paul Mabenga was the best at a 66.3. Braylon Moore was at a 63.6. After that, when you look at the rest of your starting offensive linemen, Tyree Adams' run blocking grade was a 54. Cohen Eccles was at a 50. Josh Thompson was a 46.2. Weston Davis was a 40.3. You couldn't run the football against a defensive front that wrecked you a year ago. And so my contention is, and we may look back in hindsight, and maybe I'm wrong, but my contention is the way they are playing right now is to protect a bad offensive line, not Garrett Nussmeier's torso. People are going to make a big deal out of the torso because that's how they're trying to connect the dots. By the way, Brian Kelly was also asked point blank about Joe Sloan and the frustration from fans with Joe Sloan. And he said, Joe Sloan is doing exactly what Brian Kelly, is telling him to do. They need to win the games a certain way right now, and that's with defense, field position, and being efficient on offense and not making mistakes. And it's working. They're 3-0. Now, it is not going to work 12, 13, 14, 15 times. Eventually, you are going to have to open up this offense. You are going to have to be able to take shots downfield and hit them, because there's going to be a game where another team scores 20, 25, whatever it is on this defense, and you're going to have to go score. Are you capable of doing that? You got the athletes to do it. You got a quarterback that was a 4,000-yard passer a year ago. Can you keep that quarterback upright? Can you run the ball to bring numbers into the box to open up your athletes defensively? That's where I stand on this. I know you're going to make your own decisions, and I know a lot of you are not going to buy what I'm selling right now. But if Garrett Nussmeier was injured, he would have been on the injury report. If Garrett Nussmeier really was significantly injured, they wouldn't have taken 7 shots downfield against Louisiana Tech. If Garrett Nussmeier was really having an issue back on Friday, August the 15th, where he didn't throw a pass, he would not have been a full go in that scrimmage on the 16th. So, again, correlation does not always equal causation. Because Brian Kelly acknowledges this torso thing with Nussmeier, it doesn't mean that's the reason LSU's offense is slowed. I think this is far more at the feet of an inexperienced offensive line that is trying to get better. Because if you remember back through all of our fall camp reports, the biggest storyline that all of us talked about was the offensive line and how that LSU defensive front was overwhelming the LSU offensive line. And I think that's a line that is still learning itself and trying to continue to grow to keep getting better. And through 3 weeks, they've not been good enough. They got to keep getting better and better. We'll see how it looks the next couple of weeks. And hopefully LSU, not just 2 more wins, they get to that open date. As Brian Kelly said, Garrett Nussmeier can shut it down for a week, and then you come back after the open date, you rip, roaring, ready to roll. Great news for LSU is they're 3-0. They're number 3 in the country, and you're probably not going to be an underdog in a game until maybe you go to Alabama or at Oklahoma. We'll see how that all plays out. But Tigers are in a good position with a great defense, great in special teams, weapons all over the field offensively. They got to figure out how to use them. Okay, as this story develops and we have updates, we'll certainly talk about it here on Locked on LSU. Hey, thanks so much for making us your first listen. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked on LSU. It's your team every day.
Now, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, this is something that you all just touched on a little bit, but the Bureau of Labor Statistics says that food service is the second largest employment sector in New Orleans. And the average wage for one of those workers is about $14 an hour. Yet MIT's cost of living wage calculator shows that the average working parent with 2 kids needs to make around $20 in New Orleans to be able to afford to live here. Which industries will you target to create living wage opportunities, and how? We begin with Councilmember Thomas.
Well, the first thing I'd like to do is go back to being a government that believes that people shouldn't make minimum wage, make sure that municipal employees and people who do business with the city have not just a living wage, but a saving wage. I was part of the first city council that adopted its own standard for minimum wage. The courts went against us, they defeated it. I'd love to have relationships with people like Senator Royce Duplessis where we can get the Senate to give us the freedom to be able to negotiate our own ability to control wages and minimum wages here in our community. But also, the mayor can set a tone and use a bully pulpit to talk about how people are being pushed out of our city, and the senator is right. If we don't make this city affordable, we're going to be the sliver by the river. We're going to be a pass-through where people come to visit, but people can't stay. That's a joint effort with the state, with the city, and all of our officials, as well as the business community. We can't leave them out. Too much money passes through our city, but it doesn't stay with our citizens.
Any specific industries that you were going to target?
Well, I mean, the tourism industry, I think we can sit down and talk to them about how more of that money stays with their workers. To me, as we diversify our economy, we can expand working with the port, working with the Biomedical Research Center. Those are areas where we can sit down and talk to them, especially when ecotourism, we have Bayou Sauvage. That's an area of growth that we don't even take advantage of.
Okay.
And we got miles of land. God didn't make any new land. We got